So, another form of mind control to be talked about is indoctrination. And a lot of people don't realize this is going on. So, let's discuss this for a moment. Our education system here in the United States is modeled exactly like the Nazi regime and Soviet Union's education system of outcome-based education. It focuses on the outcome rather than what has truly been learned. They don't think about it. No Child Left Behind, and then the bell curve and all that nonsense, all just so that way these people can keep making money. But they start teaching you things that don't necessarily matter. It's not necessarily relevant. Now, the reason why this is important is because if they control what you learn, then ultimately they control your consciousness. So if they start pushing things like liberal arts and Western philosophy and things that make you utilize the right hemisphere of the neocortex more than the left, it puts you in a brain imbalance that ultimately affects your consciousness. And by doing so, they instantly make you more agreeable. The right hemisphere of the neocortex, that is your feminine brain, so to speak. Now, in a previous video, I discussed that women, sometimes get paid less than men. And that there's reasons for that. One of the reasons is, they go on medical leave for children, having children and things like that. But also, they don't tend to push the issue. They get offered a certain wage and they're more agreeable. Now, this is not necessarily inherently a bad thing. It helps create solutions to conflict. However, if it's used against you, then it'll create lots of problems. So, the problem with being too agreeable and being too far into that mode of thinking is it basically turns you into a slave to whatever you're being told. And I'm not saying that women are slaves or anything like that, but just think about this. If you're more agreeable to what your boss says, and I'm not saying don't listen to your boss, what I am saying is if you are more agreeable and you just do what he says, then really you're not utilizing your brain. You're not thinking. You're not problem solving. You're just doing. And unconscious action tends to lead to problems, as we all know. We see this in drug addiction. People they don't weigh the pros and the cons of doing drugs, even when they know that it's causing problems. And I've been there myself with alcohol and many other things where I haven't weighed the pros and cons and I just did things. When you just do things without thinking about the consequences, then whatever consequences come your way are absolutely your fault and you have nobody else to blame. If you go and do drugs and don't think about what if these are bad drugs, and you do the drugs and you end up in a hospital after an overdose, you don't get to blame the drug dealer. Just know that. You don't get to blame the drug dealer. You made the conscious choice to think without act without thinking. And so that's on you. Being more agreeable isn't always a good thing. You have to know how to balance these things. So back to indoctrination in our education system. What it's doing, and it all starts with our children. That is why as we grow up more and more, our children grow up and they become more and more feminized. We see this in men who are constantly, they say they're fighting for women's rights, fighting for LGBTQ, whatever the heck it is. Like, I don't necessarily subscribe to all that. Like, that's not my interest. However, men are being definitely, without any kind of objection that is true, being more feminized. Men are absolutely being more feminized. Now, where's the problem in that? Men typically are the fighters. We're the strength, typically. I hope nobody decides to twist my words on this, but men tend to be the fighters. They tend to be the strong ones. They tend to be the protectors. Well, if you create a society where most men are feminized, then ultimately right out the gate, that takes away our ability to fight back. So that's a problem that needs to be addressed. It absolutely needs to be addressed. However, when you do that, you're basically serving that left wing. Now remember that the right brain controls the left side of the body. So the right brain, the right hemisphere of the neocortex, would control the left wing of the bird, the political bird, the eagle in the United States, but on the grand global scale, it's the phoenix. The phoenix is representative of rebirth and regeneration, the constant, never-ending cycle. So is the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, and the never-ending cycle. But I digress. So the right brain controls the left wing, the left brain controls the right wing. Now, I hope everybody is conscious enough to know this. The only difference between socialism and communism is the method upon which they use to get the same outcome. Okay? So that left wing stands for socialism. People will quote the Fabian socialists, which their symbol is the wolf in sheep's clothing. So just know that there's the wolf and the snake here. Okay? One represents the art of deception, attaining the goal through deceiving and mind controlling, as far as deceptive mind control. And the other side of the spectrum would be communism, which is the same fucking thing except through brute force. They attain the goal through fear-based consciousness, not deceptive mind control where people are confused about things, but they get it through fear-based mind control, trauma-based mind control. They do this by, threatening you. Well, you have to pay your taxes or we're going to send you to jail where you can get beat up or raped or anything like that. Not saying that those things don't happen, but they definitely do not happen as frequently as they tell you on TV. And yes, I know from experience, I've been to jail, not felonies. I'm not a felon. Not that it matters, but a lot of people get this prejudice about people who've been to jail. Sometimes people just get drunk and do stupid shit when they're young, but that's neither here nor there. So communists, if you know anything about the Bolshevik Revolution, they created confusion and discord and then did a forceful takeover. And when you're backed by a military force, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna come in and try and vote me out? That's the thing. Like, the voting doesn't matter. Like, you guys can vote all day. It's not going to make a difference. It's still the same end goal here. The New World Order. No one seems to comprehend that. And that's, like, whether that's through ignorance or nescience, it doesn't matter. Whether it's because you haven't had the information, which, if you think you haven't had the information available, You need to wake up, because a lot of this stuff has been out for a long time. You know, like, I didn't even really have that much of a clue, but that's because I was too busy focusing on work and doing things like going out and partying when I was younger, being a young dumb kid, driving around doing stupid shit, and just focusing on all the wrong things. Rather than trying to learn, I was focused on trying to have a good time. Well, here's the thing. You're not going to really be able to have a sustained, lengthy, good time unless you learn about things. And even still, it's a hard time trying to stay focused, stay calm, and stay balanced in a world that seems indifferent, and I don't want to sound cynical by saying that, but it's just how it is. Most of the world doesn't care about your problems, which, whatever. But here's my question: do you care about your problems, or are you just trying to drown them away with alcohol, or drown them away with smoking pot? Or, for the people out there that do the hard drugs, are you just trying to drown your problems away with heroin, or, get amped up on cocaine so that way you can spend the next day fucking panicking, or meth, or whatever the hell your thing is? Or are you trying to drown your problems away by working out 3 hours a day like I used to? Are you trying to drown your problems away with constant, pleasure chasing with sex? That perpetual pleasure chasing, as Wes Watson talks about it. That is a roadblock to becoming a better person. Life isn't all about pleasure. Life isn't all about comfort. If you're seeking comfort over truth and what is right morally, what is morally true and right, and what is true when it comes to knowledge, then you're doing life wrong. If you willingly subscribe to a system of belief that does not align with what is true and what is morally correct, then you are living your life in a way that is not based in correctness. The good news is that you can change all this. You can absolutely change all of this. It only takes one seed. Plant one seed and water it and let it grow to change your entire life. Plant that seed of truth and water it, let it grow. How do you water it? How do you make sure it has the right nutrients? Well, you have to constantly be trying to learn. And the biggest thing is you have to constantly be trying to learn the correct things. You have to try and learn what is correct, what is true, what is morally just, and then can you start to really find the balance within yourself, really try to figure out the solutions to your problems. If you have a problem that's based in financial stress, say you're not going to have enough money to pay the bills to make sure that you stay alive this week, this month, then ask yourself, what can you do? Where can you make the sacrifices here? If you're spending an hour a day playing video games, but you're not going to have enough money to pay your rent, maybe instead of that hour a day, cut it down to an hour a week and go DoorDash for an hour. DoorDash for an hour a day, 5 days a week, and before you know it, there's an extra $100. There's plenty that you can do to start solving problems in your life. And these are things that I apply every day, but you got to get out of this whole idea that we're all different. We got to get out of the idea that just because somebody went to college means that they are more intelligent or know more about the way life works. We need to get out of this idea that we know how things work in general, because most of us have no clue. I didn't have a clue. I thought I knew how the world worked, and then within the last 6 months, I've realized just how wrong I was. And here's the biggest thing. It's okay if you were wrong in the past. Admit your mistakes and move on from it. So that's about all I have to say on that. Just balance yourself. Balance that intellect with that care factor, that feminine and the masculine, the yin and the yang, the left and the right. Balance it, meet in the middle, and that's how you're going to have the biggest impact, not just on yourself, but in this world. It's only when you can attain balance within yourself that you can hope to attain balance outward.